Demo for the mixing audio. The first step you're going to want to do is go to your Finder window and you're going to want to look in Documents. You'll see that listed on the left hand side here, Documents. Open that up and you should find a folder in there called Broken Each Other In Project. Now we need to make a copy of this into your student folder first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to two finger tap on it and copy Broken Each Other In Project. Okay. Then I'm going to go on the Finder to your student audio drive and find your folder that you've created. Two finger tap anywhere on the blank space there and do paste item. And that'll make a copy of the Broken Each Other In project so that you can open it and work on it and save it, and it will remember your saves. So once you've done that, then we're just going to open up. And I'm going to break this into a few different steps. So on this one, we're just going to go through steps 1 through 4. So when you open up your projects, it's going to probably look something like this. It'll take just a minute for the waveforms to draw in. You can kind of see they're figuring it out right now, right? So while that's loading, let's just go over the rubric real quick just so you can see what I'm going here. So the first thing, we're going to organize our tracks into groups. Drums first, in this order. Bass, guitars, keys, any additional instruments, and then vocals last. So your tracks need to be in that order first. And you could really be doing this step while you're doing step number 2, but I'm going to do it separately just because I think it's good to just focus on one thing at a time. So when you first bring this project in, things are actually going to import in alphabetical order, which is not a good order to be mixing in. We want to group these to have it make more sense, right? So I think actually looking at this screen is going to be an easier screen to organize your things with. So vocals we want last, right? Drums we want first. So I'm going to start with drums and just start dragging them over. So kick, boundary, and kick mic. Those are both kick microphones, so that's on the drum set. Going over here, overhead, OH, that's what overhead stands for. That's drum set also, OH also. We got left and right. Usually I go left first, then right second. Room, we'll leave at the end. We've got snare, bottom, and we've also got snare top. Put that over. Usually I'll put tops first and bottoms second. Okay. So that's all of our drums. So you should kick, kick, snare, snare, overhead, overhead. Then we've got our bass. We've got a bass DI, which stands for direct input. We've also got electric guitar. And we've got acoustic guitar. I'm going to put acoustic guitar before electric guitar. And then we've got violin. So I'm getting all my instruments after the drums, before the vocals, and then last we do the vocals. We've got Allie on the vocals and Megan on the vocals. And then very last, I've got the room mic, which was just a mic that was set up in the room when we were doing the recording. Not even sure if we're going to use that in the mix. In fact, to start with, I'm going to take it completely out of the mix. So I'm just going to click on that, and that will mute that track. And while we're at it, the next step would be to listen to all of your tracks, right? So you just want to listen to what you have and just see what this song sounds like. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time in the demo playing the song. We'll do that in class, and I expect you to do that on your own quite a bit. An important part of mixing is listening, of course, right? But what you want to do next is just listen to what you have. And while you're listening to what you have, I think that it's a good idea to mute different tracks. And then also to solo different tracks, just so you can really clearly hear what's making what sounds and which tracks sound like what and how they're contributing to the mix. You really have to listen to them separately in order to really understand how it's all coming together. And so let's go back and look at our other screen here just by pushing tab. I a lot of times like to just listen to a louder part of the mix first. So this looks like a pretty loud spot in the mix where all the instruments are playing. That's a good sign, right? So I'm just going to come up here and just do like a selection. So just like maybe like that, just that much. And I like to loop the selection, which is that button up there. Or you can push Command L to loop a selection. That way it'll just keep playing it over and over again. And while it's doing that, I can make some adjustments. So again, if I want to hear just this one track, I'll solo it. That's the S button there. If you want to get back to listening to all the tracks, just click on it again and they'll all come back on. If you want to solo a couple of tracks, by default it will only let you solo on one track, but if you hold down Command while you click, then you can solo 2 tracks. So if you wanted to just listen to 2, that might be a good way to go. If you start wanting to listen to more like 4 or 5, and you're soloing all of them, I think it's actually a better idea to just think about which tracks you're turning off, and that's the yellow squares, right? So that would be like muting those tracks. So this first step is really a lot of like just listening and getting rid of tracks and then bringing them back in just so you can hear what everything does. And I'll just give you an example of that. Let's listen to the kick drum. So I picked this spot because it's got some good kicks happening in it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and push play, and I'm going to solo this mic. All right, and you'll hear there's actually a lot of cymbals and other things kind of blending in there, and if you listen carefully, you might even hear some guitars and other things like that. And that's because when we were recording this, people were all in the same room at the same time playing, and so it's a lot of what we call bleed, right? And part of your job as mixing is to maybe diminish some of that bleed in the mics, but bleed isn't inherently bad as long as we can get what we need out of that microphone, right? So that's the kick mic. Let's check out the kick boundary in the same spot. A lot better isolation on that one, so we're not hearing so much of like cymbals and guitars and other things, although I can still hear other drums in there, right? And again, there's just no way around that because the drum set is making lots of noise, and wherever you put a microphone, it's going to be picking up sound from all over the place, right? And so, go through that, and your first step is to just balance out your mix. And how you do that is these arrows here. If you click on them and drag them down, that'll make that sound quieter, right? And generally, in this stage of the mix especially, we want to do what's called subtractive mixing. And so rather than focusing on things that you want more of, focus on stuff that you want less of, right? So in other words, if you're listening to your mix and you're thinking, I really wish that the vocals were louder, the way to get the vocals louder is not to turn the vocals up just yet. It's actually turn everything else down. So you're trying to get like the balance and the ratio, right? And later on we'll get volume figured out. But before you start adding volume to things, you want to make sure that your mix is reasonable. And by default in Ableton, all your faders start out at 0. That's these little triangles right here. And so think subtractively when you're starting out on your mix. Bring things down, one at a time. Just start bringing down faders until things start balancing out a little bit. And I'll give you lots of pointers in class about like what to look for and what to listen for as you're doing that. And then the final step in this first video is to adjust your panning. So once you get a good overall blend where things are kind of balanced out pretty well, even on the loud spots, panning will move your sounds to the left or the right in your ears, right? And right now, again, by default, everything is panned center. That's what this little knob right here is. That means both ears are hearing it the exact same way. So if I click on this knob and drag down, it'll move to the left ear more. And if I drag up, it will move to the right ear more. And how I like to think of it is I like to imagine if I was seeing this band on a stage, where would each of these members be? Like for instance, the drums are usually in the middle of the stage, but they're back, right? And so my kick drum's kind of the center of the drum kit, so I usually leave that center. My snare, however, though, if I'm in the audience, is a little bit on the right-hand side, so I'm going to drag that a little bit over to the right, both top and bottom. Overhead left, I'll obviously move that to the left. How far left, that's up to you, okay? Over right, usually I'll balance those out so that they're mirror images of each other, but you can decide, where's my bass player? Are they on the right-hand side of the drum kit or the left-hand side of the drum kit? That's up to you. I'll put it over to the right for now. Acoustic guitar, let's say that's just a little off to the left. Electric guitar, a little off to the right. Violin, maybe a little bit more off to the left. And here again, when you're doing this, again, think about balance. You don't want to put, a whole bunch of instruments on the right hand side and not have very much on the left hand side. And likewise, you don't want to put like all the noisy instruments on one side and the quiet instruments on the other side. So be thinking about that as you're balancing it out too. That left and right ears need to be hearing like, roughly the same amount of sound, even though they're hearing different volumes of these different instruments, right? And then lastly, my vocals for this particular song. If I remember right, Megan is our lead vocal, and Allie's the backup vocal, and she doesn't really even sing on this, if I if I remember right. In fact, I think we just had this microphone set up from another song. I'll have to listen to it and double check that. But Megan's clearly the lead vocal here, right? And so I'm going to put her in the center, and we'll put Allie off to the side for now. And then, like I said, the room mic's out of the mix right now. I'm just not even considering that at this point. We'll bring that one in at the end. So that's your first step. Balance it out with some fader movements, and then do some panning. And that's it.